Folks, we'd like to welcome our viewing audience watching our live stream on the Rewind Sports 60 and airing on the WIN Media Group, WIN TV, to our 2023 Mayoral Forum here in Wheeling, Illinois, home of Chicago Executive Airport.
We are just days away from a very important and historic election here in the city of Chicago. 9 candidates are vying for the seat on the 5th floor at the City Hall, and the race is very tight.
Now, early voting is already underway, and many voters have cast their votes, but many others have yet to vote, and still many are undecided, particularly in the Asian, Black, and Brown communities. For the next 45 minutes, we'll be discussing topics ranging from voter suppression, crime, policing, education, transportation, and even the Chicago Bears organization. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer each question. At the 1 minute mark, a timer will sound off to indicate the time is up, and at that time, the candidate will have 1 minute to respond to the previous candidate's remarks.
3 of the 9 candidates have elected to join us today to discuss the issue concerning you, 3 virtually. We would like to welcome candidates Alderman Sophia King, Mr. Jamal Green. Mr. Paul VALLAS will be joining us virtually later in the program. We would like to mention that we did reach out to every candidate running in this upcoming mayoral election, but received either a no answer or no response at all. So we thank you all for participating today.
So welcome, candidates, and thank you for joining our forum to address the very important concerns and the serious issues pertaining to the city of Chicago, and in particular, again, the Asian, Black, and Brown communities. We welcome you. We start our candidates. We'll begin with your opening remarks. Mr. Green, we appreciate you joining. We start with you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm running for mayor because I didn't see any tangible results in my community from politicians growing up. I'm an outsider, not a politician, someone who understands what it feels like to live poor, to have my friends be killed from gun violence, to dodge bullets, to have friends living in abandoned buildings because they're homeless. We need a mayor who really understands and can relate to Chicago issues, as well as have fought each and every day to make sure that we have better. We made Chase Bank give $1 billion to redline communities when they were redlined in South and West Sides in 2020. Had made sure that the businesses that were looted were reopened when we gave them $250,000 within a week. Mentored at-risk youth, helped out food deserts. For many years, my record is better than everybody record in this race combined when it comes to the results given back to the communities. And we need somebody who really understands the plight of everyday people in this city and is going to move forward, real tangible change, and execute and get things done. And that's what I'm going to do as mayor of the city of Chicago.
All right, thank you, Mr. King. Excuse me, Mr. Green. Alderman King,
you have the floor now.
Thank you.
Alderman King.
Am I unmuted? Okay, great. So they're marrying us now, Jamal. Thank you for having us. I just want to note that it's kind of disrespectful that so many candidates did not show up. The Pan-Asian community, Black and Brown community, obviously are vibrant parts of our city. And so I'm happy to be here. I'm running for mayor for various reasons. In particular, I've noted that there's so much dissension between this administration and everyone that we're not getting anything done between, the administration and the teachers, the police. 16 of my colleagues are leaving. We need somebody who can truly lead with collaboration to get things done. I've been showing this over the last 6.5 years as alderman, whether it be the fight for $15 minimum wage, which I led that fight that brought 400,000 people, gave them a raise and 100,000 out of poverty. Also leading the Michael Reese development, which shows that both the developer and the community can have an upside as we have a $25 million commitment to schools, 20% commitment to affordable housing on site, and a 60% commitment to diverse participation for contracts. But I'm also running because we need a mayor, and I will be a mayor that can represent the entire city I represent a very diverse ward from downtown to Hyde Park with Bronzeville in the middle. 40% white, 50% African American, almost 10% Asian or other. And the number one request I get, no matter where I am, is for more police presence, which tells me there's still a respect and a deference there. But we also know that we need more than police. So we're offering a plan that puts more police in all of our neighborhoods immediately and more police
Thank
where
you,
they're
Ms. King.
needed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Oh,
we'll listen more
Thank you.
later
Did I
on.
go over time?
Thank you.
Apologize.
Thank you. We're going to start off with voter suppression. Candidates, Mayor Lori Lightfoot, during the Southside rally this past Saturday, was accused of voter suppression. The mayor asked the voters to do their deeds, to get registered, and to drag people to the polls. Quote, "Every vote coming out of the Southside should be for Lightfoot," end quote. She's now backtracking on her remarks. We start with you, Mr. Green. How do you respond to the mayor's alleged voter suppression remarks?
Well, what was funny to me is that the mayor didn't get much South and West Side support when she actually ran for mayor for the first round, and a lot of her support came from the North Side. So it was funny that she was trying to make it seem like she's the only black candidate in the race that can win when she didn't even get catapulted to the runoff with black voters. And so another thing is how can you say that when you have the lowest favorables than anybody in this race? The reality is that her approval is in the 20 percentile range, and no one is disliked more than the current mayor in this field of candidates. So, I think that most people want something different. Majority of people do. Every poll has shown that, and they are ready for some real radical and tangible change. And that's what we're offering. And I think people in every community, black, brown, white, Pan-Asian, everybody, I believe, is ready for that change and going to get it come February 28th.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Alderman King, your response?
Yeah, I think it was very irresponsible, especially as a black person, to try and suppress votes when, blacks and other people of color, our votes have been suppressed in very egregious ways over the history, of our country. And so for her to even say something like that is just irresponsible, and it's self-serving. I think Jamal was being generous when he said 20%. 85% of people do not want this mayor reelected. And so for her to speak to 85% of people and tell them to stay home and not vote, that, and as the leader of the city, it's very self-serving. But unfortunately, that's how, she has led. It's always been kind of about her and not about the city.
Thank you.
And so we need to put the city first.
Thank you, Alderman. We appreciate it. Our next question, Alderman King, we'll start with you. It's about the Asian community issues. Julia will ask the question in Korean first and then in English. Julia?
Thank you. Okay. I will ask within Korean because our Korean viewers are watching, and then this is the matter of Asian American community issue, so I'll say Korean first. 최근 들어 아시안에 대한 헤이트 크라임이 증가하고 있습니다. 귀하께서는 아시안 증오 범죄가 증가하는 이유가 어디에 있다고 생각하십니까? 이에 대한 대책을 가지고 계십니까? I'll ask. Recently, hate crimes against Asians are increasing. What do you think is the reason for the increase in Asian hate crimes? And do you have any countermeasures? Mr. Green?
Ms. King, we'll start with you on that question.
Okay. Alderman King? Yeah.
Thank you. No, I honestly think that it's terrible that hate crimes are increasing for Asian Americans and for others as well. I think a lot of that, comes from leadership, unfortunately. I think we had a president that stoked, a lot of divisive rhetoric that has led to some of the hate crimes. And I think, there's a lot of ignorance in our country and in our city, and people are fueled by that. So I think it's important who your leaders are. One of the ways that we can, prevent that is through education, through, informing people about, making sure that the rhetoric that's falsely being spread, that we counter that, with positive narratives.
Thank
Thank
you.
So
you.
that's
Thank
one of
you.
the things that I would do. Thank you.
Thank
What,
you.
what is our time? So I know what it is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, 1 minute?
1 minute for each candidate.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, I know. Thank you.
Mr. Green, same question.
Well, it definitely has been on the rise. I agree that it's been a leadership in the, especially in this country, the divisiveness that have happened over the past, 5-6 years. So, one thing that the city must do is the city must strengthen our resources in regards to accountability. We got to make sure that we're holding folks accountable, that we're making it easier to have the resources needed so that we can investigate properly and know of the folks who are committing these hate crimes, whether publicly, on social media. We got to make sure we crack down and let them know that hate does not live in this city, and hate will not live in this city as long as I'm mayor. I know what my ancestors went through in this country, and we will not allow anyone in this diverse nation, in this diverse city, to hate anyone under our administration.
Thank you.
Thank you. My next question for Asian American community, in Korean first. 갤럽 폴에 의하면 미국 전체의 아시안 아메리칸의 30%가 고용차별을 당하는 것으로 보고됐습니다. 이것은 흑인들의 고용차별 숫자 26%보다도 상회하는 것으로 가장 고용차별을 많이 받는 인종이 됩니다. 귀하께서는 이러한 아시안 아메리칸에 대한 고용차별에 대해 어떤 대책과 방안을 갖고 계십니까? According to a Gallup poll, 30% of all Asian Americans in the United States report experience employment discrimination. This is higher than the 26% employment discrimination rate for African Americans. Do you have any measures in place to offset employment discrimination against Asian Americans? Mr. Green?
Yeah, no, this is super important. We need someone in the mayor's office that is dedicated to making sure that they're removing barriers of employment and holding accountable any business or corporations that is discriminating based on race. This is personal to me. And so we're going to make sure that we have someone in the mayor's office that is kind of like a czar that we appoint to make sure that they're overseeing the departments, that they're overseeing the contracting process, that they're overseeing different corporations and best business practices so that we can make sure that there's no discrimination going on. And if there is, then we're going to hold folks accountable, find folks, remove contracts, and make sure that they know that we don't stand for any type of discrimination.
Thank you. Now, Alderman King, please.
Yeah, thank you. I think data is really important. So we have to make sure that we have data. The city of Chicago is one of the biggest employers, in the state, and one of the biggest procurers of contracts. So we have billions of dollars that we distribute. So we need to make sure that those dollars are distributed equitably. We need to make sure that the jobs that we have are distributed equitably, and there's no better way to do that than transparency and data. I've been able to start that data when I came in so that we can track our employees by demographics, by race, and so that we can track where our dollars are being spent by demographics and by race. And I think, education, again, in terms of discrimination is important, but we should also hold companies that do business with the city of Chicago accountable too for the private work that they do as well. So I think that's one of the things we can elevate, but definitely making sure the data is transparent so people understand how many people are being employed, who's getting those contracts.
Right.
Thank
you. Thank you. My last question for Asian American community in Korean first. 아시아는 성공한 에트닉이고 마럴 마이너리티라는 고정관념으로 인해서 아시안들은 소수인종으로서 특별 배려를 받는 대신에 역차별을 당한다는 의견이 많습니다. 이에 대해 어떻게 생각하시고 있습니까? 아시안 아메리칸에 대해 어떤 배려나 정책을 갖고 계십니까? Due to the stereotype that Asians are successful ethnicity and model minority, there are many opinions that Asians are subject to reverse discrimination instead of receiving special consideration as a minority. What do you think of this? What consideration or policies do you have for Asian Americans? Mr. Green?
Can you restate the question, the first part?
Oh, sure. Due to the stereotype that Asians are successful ethnicity and model minority, there are many opinions that Asians are subject to reverse discrimination instead of receiving special consideration as a minority.
Okay. Well, I think that, it's just going to be strengthening what's in place, right? Strengthening, making sure that that's why I talked about having someone in the mayor's office that is appointed that actually oversees discrimination, right? We got to make things better. We got to make sure that folks have access to housing and access those resources to have home ownership, that there's access to grants, opportunities in our small business department, that no matter what department or what area, that we make sure that the Asian community gets their set aside so that they can be successful and live healthy and sustainable lives. We're going to do that under our administration. It's more about intentionality, and I have the intention to make things fair in this city and to break the systems that aren't working.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Alderman King?
Yeah, I think piggybacking off of what I said earlier, I think data is important, representation is important, and I think there's no better way to hold our city accountable than by having transparent data for those people of color who are underrepresented, either through jobs or through contracts. And so making sure that we have that data available. Like I said, we are one of the biggest employers in the state. We are also one of the biggest procurers of contracts. So we need to make sure that that money is being distributed equitably, and the way to do that is to make sure that the data is transparent. We've begun that process, but most people don't know that we keep data on employment by demographics, that we keep contracts by demographics as well. So we need to make sure to figure out where Asians are having challenges, what departments, what procurement outlets they're having challenges in, and then help there, and then representation.
Thank you, Alderman King. We're going to focus now on crime. And Alderman King, we'll start with you. There's a $7,000 reward offered for information on the I-57 shooting that killed a 1-year-old girl and 2 teens. The shooting happened at about 10:40 p.m. on Sunday in the northbound lanes of I-57 near 111th Street. That's according to the Illinois State Police. 3 people were wounded in the attack. Alderman King, the question for you and Jamal, if you're elected mayor, what will you do to reduce crime in the black communities, especially the violence going on in the Wild Hundreds, as the neighborhood is called? Alderman King?
So, yeah, I think data as well as lawsuits have shown us that our officers are not in the places that they need to be when they need to be. So I have a plan that puts more officers in all of our communities to mitigate bad times. So they're there during good times, during positive loitering, walking the streets, meeting people, that they're there. And I also have a plan that gets to violence intervention. We have to make sure that we spend hundreds of millions of dollars on violence intervention so we can offer folks who are likely to shoot or be shot another pathway. That's important. We also have to get to alternative forms of policing. We know that over 50% of calls to 911 are for nonviolent issues like homelessness, like mental health insecurities. We need to do that so that we can have our officers responding to more violent issues, and then youth engagement, which
Thank
I
you.
can talk about later.
Thank
But
you.
those are the 4 things that I would do
Alderman.
to get to crime.
Thank you, Alderman. Mr. Green?
Yeah, we got to make sure that we're doing what works. One of the things is that we got to have a peer responder unit of social workers that are responding to half the 911 calls to free up police to deal with more violent crimes. We got to institute a youth intervention department where we have youth interventionists that put young people on the right path. You should be working as young as 13 years old a year round with apprenticeships that the city will pay for, where young people be in a safe space, learning skills, and it's a win-win. Schools should be open throughout the day and on weekends. We're also going to bring trade and tech hubs back to our schools. We're going to have a reentry program for those who return home who need housing and job opportunities. We got 380,000 lead pipes right now and the billions of dollars in infrastructure money that's coming down. We can create a massive jobs program. We have to stabilize these communities with a middle class, help them become homeowners with a single family mortgage bond in a public bank, help them open up small businesses with their first business license being free, stabilize these communities, investing in young people and invest in people.
Thank you so very much. We appreciate it. Julia?
Okay, thank you. Quote, Black Chicagoans deserve to be safe. Demonstrated by a recent poll, Black Chicagoans recognize that safety can be achieved by both meeting people's basic needs and creating equitable systems. The next mayor of Chicago must prioritize and focus on increasing the number of accessible jobs that pay a living wage and strong public education system and reliable public transportation and affordable housing and childcare, not focusing on increasing the police department's budget, end quote, said Patrice James, Executive Director of the Illinois Black Advocacy Initiative. What is your plan to accomplish these concerns in the Black and brown communities? Alderman King?
Yeah, so we have a plan to make sure that we bring the trades and the tech jobs of the future back to the schools. Right now, those jobs are not accessible or they're not accessible while kids are in school and while we have them engaged. So we have to bring the trades, the tech jobs of the future back to our schools in a meaningful way. As the mayor, I will leverage the 5th floor in order to do that. We'll also make sure that, again, our youth are engaged during after-school programs as well. Again, in terms of one of our safety methods for violence intervention, we want to pay, our vulnerable, mostly Black and brown young folks to $600 a week. And with that comes a responsibility of job training so that they can be trained for these jobs of the future, trauma-informed care, wraparound services where the community wraps themselves around this individual so that they can have support to get trained for the jobs that they need, to get the trauma-informed care that they need so that they can become successful citizens in our city. And then,
Thank you, Alderman.
they have a job and we'll be creating
Thank you.
or contributing to
Thank you.
our economy.
Thank you, Alderman.
Mr. Green?
Yeah, we got to have good paying jobs. We got to have high quality education. Our school system has to get better. We are failing kids each and every day. Makes no sense that you got to send your kid out of the neighborhood just to get a decent education. So we got to really make sure that every school in the city of Chicago is not funded based off of enrollment, but it's based off of need. So we have institutions that have the resources and the wraparound services to take care of our young people. When people move into neighborhoods, they look at the schools, they look at the resources. Grocery stores aren't in these neighborhoods. So the city needs to step in and actually control ownership of some of these grocery stores so that these grocery stores can stay in these communities. We got to bring back our mental health clinics and have public health clinics that we control so that we can help folks who are mentally ill. We got to do what's actually is going to work. We got to create massive jobs. There are 50,000 manufacturing jobs that are open. We need a pipeline to them. We're going to do that under our administration to have a middle class stabilizer.
Thank you so very much. We turn our focus a little bit toward policing, and I'm going to go back a little bit in history, Chicago history. This question, and Mr. Green, we'll start with you. The former Chicago Police Department Superintendent, the late Leroy Martin, in the 1980s made a statement that the Chicago Police Department was, quote, the baddest gang in the city, end quote. Is that still an unspoken rule that's practiced internally throughout the Chicago police force today, do you think? And if so, what would you do to change it?
100%. We all know that the police is a gang, and it still is, and they gang bang blue, right? And there are a lot of police officers who are affiliated with different hate groups, like the Proud Boys. We got a member of the police department right now who was just suspended when he should have been fired. We're going to have a zero tolerance policy for any officer that has affiliations to any hate groups. If I see it online, if I see you at a rally, if I see a tattoo on you, we're going to fire you immediately. We're going to fine any officer that misused their body cameras or misused their equipment so that they can impede an investigation on purpose. We're going to fine them up to $5,000. We want them to carry liability insurance. If they have insurance, we're not spending $100 million a year on police misconduct settlements. They need to pay for their own settlements. Then they'll stop racking them up. We got to have some accountability measures, make sure that they fulfill the consent decree, which I fought to put in place many years ago, and do what actually is working, investing in people, not increasing the police budget, and holding them accountable.
Thank you. Alderman King?
Yeah, so certainly we have to hold bad police accountable. And are there bad police? Yeah, we see it play over and over again. There certainly are, and we definitely need to hold them accountable. Agree with Jamal. We should have fired the Proud Boy right away, and there's nothing but excuses when we talk about that. That should have been something that we used to set an example of how we have a no tolerance policy. I think one of the best ways is to make sure that our officers continue to be trained. The consent decree calls for that, so we need to make sure that happens. We also need to make sure that our officers look like the people that they serve. So I would encourage us to make sure that we hire from Black, Brown, Asian communities so that we can make sure that officers look like the people that they serve, that they're more culturally competent, and so that they can understand how to better serve those communities.
Alderman, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
I want to get back to you, Mr. Green. You said something about if you get in the office that anyone that you suspect that may be a gang member, you talked about a tattoo, your no-nonsense policy, they're fired. How do you plan to implement that structure of a system, being the mayor, if you see someone with a tattoo that represent what you believe is a gang? How do you plan to implement that? We'll give you 30 seconds.
That we're going to put a policy in place. We may have to move forward an ordinance that states that if you are and I'll just I think this will apply for any city workers, right? And that way the police will just be under that. But if we find that you have any tattoos, because they all have to tell the tattoos in the police department of the tattoos that they have. And if you have any that is affiliated with any hate groups, you are eligible for automatic firing.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Thank you. Alderman King, would you like to rebut that 30 seconds?
Yeah, I just think we have to hold folks accountable. I don't know about tattoos and what have you. I'm more concerned about behavior because, somebody could have been affiliated at one point. I do think that there should be a route for redemption and people on the right path. But behavior that's occurring right away, we have to hold folks accountable. More importantly, we have to, again, make sure that we train folks on cultural competency and, what's expected of officers.
Thank you.
To serve and protect.
Thank you so very much. Julia?
Thank you. Police staffing and police awareness, in particular, the high rate of suicide among police officers. 3 Chicago police officers died by suicide in the last week. That brings the total number of Chicago Police Department officer suicides to 7 this year. This come from WTTW report on December 27, 2022. Actually, the date was December 15 and December 22nd. Question: what will you do to prevent it? Alderman King?
Yeah, our plan calls for switching to a 4-day on, 4-day on, 3-day off schedule that gives officers the rest that they deserve, the mental health time that they need if they need to seek mental care. But the schedules that they've been working and the stress that they're under, it's just not good. It's not good for them. It's definitely not good for our city. So we're talking about changing the shift, going from 3 shifts to 2 shifts, which would put up to 50% more officers. Again, give them a 4-day on, 3-day off, still a 40-hour work week, but gives them the rest that they need for their mental health care. That's a plan that we can implement right away. It also puts up to 50% more officers in our communities. So it's a win-win. It helps the officers and it helps our communities.
Thank you. Follow-up question, but it's a very important question. Will you fund or defund the police department?
Yeah, I will look, at the police department. Right now, I don't have any plans of defunding the police. We're 1,600 officers down, but we can't keep police. They're leaving faster than we can hire them. I don't think right now that they're equitably distributed. There's not a lot of information about that, so that's something I'll have to get in the weeds of. But right now, I do not have plans to defund the police.
Thank you. Mr. Green, same question. What will you do to prevent it?
Prevent what? I'm sorry.
Oh, I will give you the question again. Okay. Police staffing and police awareness, in particular, the high rate of suicide.
Oh, yeah.
You know that, right? Okay.
So
how are you going to?
You went to defund and refund.
So first question is, what will you do to prevent it?
All right. Well, I definitely agree with the work week. That is actually in our plan as well for a 4-day 3 off, but 1 mental health day in between. We also want to staff therapists at all of the police stations. And then we got to take the load off of police officers. So if we have a pure responder unit of social workers who are responding to mental health calls, responding to homelessness, then what you'll have is officers not responding to all of these calls that usually end up tragic, right? So taking the load off of them and changing the workday, giving them counseling, making sure that there are therapists that are readily available in every district is how we will prevent it.
Okay, now follow-up question. Will you fund or defund the police department?
Well, I'm evidence-based, and I think that one of the first things I'm gonna do is when I appoint a new superintendent, is he's gonna have to bring me a plan that makes sense. And if that plan is that we have this amount of officers and this is the goals that we have and it makes sense, then I'll go with it. But if it does not make sense, I will not do it. And right now, we have increased the police budget every year, and it has not worked. So you have to convince me that it'll work for me to do it.
Thank you. Follow-up question to both of you. If you are elected mayor of the city of Chicago, on the streets there's been some rumblings about the superintendent not being an insider or a Chicagoan. If you are the mayor of the city of Chicago and you make changes, will you make changes with the Chicago Police Department, and will you look for a superintendent inside the police force, or will you look outside? Jamal, you're first.
Yes. David Brown has to go. I want someone that is from the inside of Chicago.
Alderman King?
Yeah, it's not personal. I think Superintendent Brown has lost the trust, the respect of the rank and file. Listen, arrests are down 75%. We need a leader who can galvanize our police force, who can lead them with the type of style that we need in order to get our officers up and working again, so that they feel respected and are willing to put themselves on the line for other folks.
All right, Alderman King, we'll stay with you on this question. Black Lives Matter is still a major concern for many around the country and, of course, here in the Chicagoland area. Recently, a young African-American entrepreneur, Miss Sydney Blakely, the owner of Cook It Mama Cafe on 31st Street in Bridgeport, was recently the victim of vandalism with the letters BLDM, Black Lives Matter, spray painted on the outside of her building, the side wall where the mural is, and the front door of her entrance. Earlier this year, past year, two black female lesbian bar owners of Nobody's Darling were also victims of racism as well in the Andersonville neighborhood. Alderman, we'll start with you first. What will you do as mayor to support small minority business owners, black women, and the LGBTQ community?
Yeah, I think you meant what was spray painted was Black Lives Don't Matter. But your point
My apologies. Black lives don't matter. Exactly.
Yeah, but your point is well taken. Certainly, again, we have to solve these type of racial hate, hate everywhere in all communities, so that these cowards can be held accountable. In order to do that, we need detectives to solve these types of crimes. And so, we're calling for putting more detectives on there. But we also have to educate people and be the type of city that elevates diversity, whether you're, black, brown, gay, straight, trans. We need to celebrate our diversity. That is the strength of our city. And we have to acknowledge that, uplift it, but also hold those folks accountable who are infringing on, not just people's civil rights, but, their quality of life. And right to be who they are.
Thank you,
we
Alderman
need to
King.
hold those folks accountable.
Thank you. Jamal Green, your response.
Yeah, no, I think it's important that we stand by small businesses and support them as much as possible. I've been doing that for many years. Even when businesses were looted, we gave $250,000 to get them back open within a week, more money than the city of Chicago gave out. So I've always been next to our small businesses as a small business owner, one of the only ones in the race. So it's important for me to make sure that we protect them, that they have the resources, that know that that we're by their side, that detectives are solving these cases, that we give more discretionary money to aldermen so that they can probably hire more, private security to help on these business corridors. That can also be another eye and ear on the ground. So it's important that we listen to them, we bring them to the table, we move forward the resources and the intentionality that we will protect them at all costs because they are the heart of the community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. I'll ask you this question. How will you convince the Chicagoans that your role as mayor will reduce crime in the city, particularly in Austin, Inglewood, Pilsen, Little Village, and other neighborhoods? Mr. Green?
Well, I'm the only one that understands it. I'm the only one in this race who actually have lived it. I'm the only one in this race who is from the very neighborhoods that are suffering the most. And I'm the only one in this race who actually have done anything about it in these neighborhoods. So, when you talk about decreasing crime and decreasing violence, you should probably get the person who has been closest to it. I've almost lost my life many times. I've seen people shoot each other. I understand the gang life and the street life. I was a troubled kid before. I understand what's going on in these neighborhoods, and I know what it takes to change it. And I have the relationship with the streets and the trenches, as we call it, throughout the city, to get them at the table to say enough is enough, and how can we help you live a better life and productive life, or we're going to hold you accountable. We can do that under our administration, and we're going to do it. And we have the best plan to actually do it on our website, Epic Plan.
Thank you. Alderman King?
Yeah, I appreciate Jamal's experience. What I would say is that, as an alderperson who has a police district downtown, has one south, I not only see the disparities in my own district, I see the disparities throughout the city. Again, we've had lawsuits, one a year ago in Austin, that shows, that if they're responded to, they're not responded to. Thousands of calls compared to other districts on the north side. So we have to change that inequity right away. Again, we have to put more police in all of our communities, but we also have to get to violence intervention. So I think we have a comprehensive plan that gets to putting more police right away in all of our communities in an equitable fashion, especially where they're needed the most, which we know that they are not now. It's a travesty. We also need to get at funding violence intervention. We also need to get at alternative responses to police, because over half of calls to police are for, homeless and mental health insecurities. We need to do that. And then we need to engage our youth. So we have a comprehensive plan that looks at all of those things.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate your response. Thank you. Alderman King, we'll start this question for you. This is a quote. Now that there's crime in Wrigleyville and Lakeview on the north side, people have a different opinion, end quote. That's from Chicago Alderman Jason Irvin, who heads the City Council's Black Caucus. He goes on to say, when it was Garfield Park and Inglewood on the south side, the reactions were different, end quote. Alderman, do you think this is a true statement, and if so, why?
Well, I definitely think that, we have been in this situation before where gun violence has been at all-time highs, whether it's in the 70s, whether it's in the 90s, or in the 40s. We've been here before. And so now that it's touching areas that it didn't traditionally touch, everybody's paying attention. And now that we have everybody's attention, we need to get at solutions so that we're not back here again. I would say that we look to the 40s like we did when gun violence was at an all-time high, but it was between Italians and Irish, and they were fighting over control of alcohol. What we did was we put resources toward it. We called it the New Deal. We ended up literally with Lincoln Park. We can do the same. We have to put resources towards it. We have to make sure that we have some of those same resources that we put back to gun violence when white people were killing each other. We can do that. And again, we have a comprehensive plan that looks at that as well.
Thank you, Alderman. Jamal, Mr. Green?
Yeah. Well, I think we need to tackle violence same as we tackle COVID, right? When COVID happened, we stepped up as a country and said, whatever we got to do to get past this public health crisis, we need to do the same here in the city of Chicago and say, whatever we have to do, let's do what works. And sometimes things are not going to work, but that's okay. We have to understand that everyone doesn't know it all, and every idea is not going to work in every neighborhood because every neighborhood is different, the nuances, the people. And so the best thing is to move forward things that we believe can work, test them. If they work, scale them up. If they don't work, then try something new and be transparent. That's one of the biggest problems with this administration is that they're still defending 4 years of failed policies. If the mayor would have came out and said, hey, guys, I messed up with this plan, it didn't work, or I'm changing my leadership because they didn't work, and let's try something new, people would be more.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Green.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to make an adjustment here. We appreciate both your time, and we hope you have a few more minutes. We are now joined on our forum here at the Rewind Sports 60 and WIN TV here in Wheeling with the former CPS CEO, Paul VALLAS, on our virtual line as well. Mr. VALLAS, are you there?
Second, we're traveling.
Mr. VALLAS?
Yes, hold on a second.
Candidates, Alderman King and Mr. Green.
Hi, how are you? Sorry about that. We're actually en route going from location to location. My apologies.
No, we understand it's a busy time of the year and you're days away from an historic day here in the city of Chicago, so we do appreciate your time. We have candidate Jamal Green virtually with us, and of course, 4th Ward Alderman Sophia King on virtual as well. So we welcome you to our forum, and we thank you for taking time in your busy schedule to join us. We just want to go over some questions that we had with the previous two candidates who are still with us. And Mr. VALLAS, the question that we asked both candidates, and we would like to get their response from your response, is on voter suppression. Mayor Lori Lightfoot, during a Southside rally this past Saturday, was accused of voter suppression. The mayor asked voters to do their deeds, get registered, and drag people to the polls. She said every vote coming out of the South Side should be for Lightfoot. She's now backtracking on her remarks. Mr. VALLAS, how do you respond to the mayor's alleged voter suppression remarks?
Well, look, when someone digs themselves into a hole, I let them try to get themselves out of it. Look, you know, I thought the remarks were irresponsible, and you know, there are generations of Americans have sacrificed to ensure that people have the right to vote and to ensure that people are out there voting. I mean, my approach when I ran the Chicago Public Schools was actually to make sure that every single child who graduated from the Chicago Public Schools who was 18, not only 18 years old, not only graduated with their high school diploma, but also graduated with their voter registration card. And we encouraged all of the children to encourage their parents to vote. So, you know, I've always felt that, you know, democracy is best served when everybody votes, when everybody exercises their constitutional rights. So I thought the remarks were unfortunate, but at the end of the day, you know, I'll let her scramble to kind of reverse herself on that. You know, I'm always going to work to remove every obstacle to people voting, and I'm also going to work overtime to help people make informed judgments.
Thank you, Mr. Vallas. Alderman King, would you like to respond to what Mr. Vallas just said?
You know, I don't think we should go back to all these questions just because he's late. That, you know, we should continue. But yeah, I've already said that I think it's irresponsible. But, you know, I also think it's irresponsible, you know, for Paul to suppress, you know, curriculum, African-American curriculum, as he's been on the record saying in schools. So, you know, I think that's irresponsible as well.
Yeah, do I have an opportunity to respond to that?
Hang on, Paul. Jamal, what would you respond to the suppression question that Paul just answered?
Yeah, I think I already answered it, but I go ahead
Sure
and let
did.
Paul get rebuttal because I answered it already.
But regarding what Paul just said, if you don't want to respond, that's fine.
I don't need to respond to Paul. Yeah,
Okay.
Paul can have his rebuttal.
Thank you so very
Yeah,
much. Paul, Paul?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Let me point out that we not only incorporated African-American history into the curriculum, just not once a month, but year-round, but we also incorporated African history into the world history curriculum. And we also allowed local school councils to adopt an even more Afrocentric curriculum. That's how the Betty Shabazz School was created and things like that. So, you know, this
No, I heard your radio comments, Paul, but you should respond to the comments when they were asking about critical race theory.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And suppressing that. And you said that you would, that it was a travesty.
Alderman?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, you know, let me respond by saying all we're trying to do is detract from the real issues at hand. I mean, we've got a city that's in a public safety crisis. We've got a school district that has lost 125,000 students since Gary Chico and I ran the district. And we just went through another round. Let me finish. We just went through another round of dramatic property tax increases. And let me point out that the latest data from the Chicago Public Schools has indicated that we're talking about single-digit test scores, children at proficiency in both language arts and math in the African American community. So at the end of the day, look,
Thank you,
clearly,
Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Vallas.
Paul, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have 3 questions for you regarding
No, but Paul,
another one.
we appreciate you and thank you. We'd like to ask you this question that's come up as well. It's been suggested that you may have Republican ideas and agenda in tap running for the mayor of the city of Chicago, yet this is a Democratic city. How do you respond to the critics who are saying that you're a Republican and not a Democrat?
Well, first of all, let me preface my remarks by saying that I've always been a Democrat. I not only got my start working for Dawn Clark Netsch and Phil Rock in the Illinois State Senate, but I also ran as a Democrat against Rob Blagojevich in the Democratic primary. I was Pat Quinn's running mate for governor as a Democrat. And of course, I ran for mayor as a Democrat. Let me also point out that the reason I have never run as a Republican is because there are certain values that clearly I do not embrace, particularly the issue of a woman's right to choose. I have always had 100% approval rating by Planned Parenthood and other advocacy organizations when it comes to the protection of a woman's reproductive rights. There have been some people out there who have referred to my Greek Orthodox faith as in conflict with my public position, but my public position has always been clear, which is why every single time I've run for office, I've gotten 100% approval rating. So I'm a lifelong Democrat, but as a lifelong Democrat, I think all the Democrats, I don't think public
Thank you,
safety
Paul.
is a partisan issue.
Paul, thank you so very much. Jamal Green, would you like to respond first?
No, I actually, because I actually have to run real soon. But I think that these are important questions that you guys are bringing up, and I know Paul is late, so he's missing a lot of these questions. But the point is clear. That we need fresh leadership in this city, and leadership that really is connected to this generation and has the pulse of all neighborhoods. And we're ready to bring that vision to light so we can create a future we can all believe in together. Stop the divisiveness and bring everyone together around the city so we can have a better city for my children and yours.
All right, Jamal, hang on. We're going to have one more question. Alderman King, would you like to respond?
No, I think it's exactly right. Some days he's a Republican, some days he's not. Some days he lives in Chicago, some days he lives in Palos Heights. It's important. He's on record as saying, he doesn't believe in a woman's right to protect their right to choose.
Unbelievable.
And you are. Paul, you are. There's a videotape of you. There's also a record of you saying, how are you going, quote unquote, to discipline your child when your child comes home and your child has basically been told, that their generation, their race, their parents, their grandparents, they have discriminated against. When you're talking against, putting African American history into schools, you're talking about white discrimination and suppressing Black history.
Thank you.
Yeah,
okay.
I question a lot of what you stand for, Paul. I really do.
Okay.
Paul, we'll give you a few seconds to respond.
Yeah, it's not really worth a response. Let's really focus.
It is. We want to hear it.
Let's focus on the issues, and my record speaks for itself. And at the end of the day, the reason I'm supported by a whole army of former CPS educators who went on to be superintendents, like Craig Williams and like Debbie Lynch, the head of the Chicago Teachers Union, or Cosette Buckney, or those legendary educators, is because we incorporated a curriculum that was truly diverse, and we incorporated African American history into the curriculum, and we extended the school day and extended the school year, and we expanded quality school choices.
Thank you,
and
Paul.
at the end of the day, my record speaks for itself.
Thank you,
look,
Paul.
I've got to go too. If you have another question,
We got one more question.
Very important question.
We appreciate everyone's time, but we want to get the issues addressed here for the communities, and it's very, very important. It could be crucial in the outcome of the race on Tuesday, the 28th. One more question.
Okay, will you commit to not raising taxes if elected? Mr. Green?
I will commit to not raising any property taxes, as well as auditing all of the taxes that we have to see how we can remove some. And we need to grow our city, right? We got to invest in homeowners. We got to bring a new tax base to this city. So I will commit to not balancing the budget off of property taxes in this city any longer, and actually putting measures in place to keep folks here with a city loyalty tax credit if you stay over 2 years, no interest loans for those folks at risk of losing their homes, and making sure that we start to do what works and bring people back home so we have a bigger tax base to work with.
Alderman King?
Yeah, that definitely will not be the first thing that I do. Definitely want to look for efficiencies. I think we can certainly find efficiencies in our government. I also think that we do need to grow our tax base. I think we need to get, we're about 2.5 million, probably to 3.5 million folks. In order to do that, we have to bring investment back to our underinvested communities, mainly in the Black and Brown communities. We've talked about, having opportunity zones to incent development there, having great schools to incentivize development and economic development and thriving business communities. I think that's the way we get to bringing more people into our community, more people who will then pay taxes so that we can spread the burden across more people. So that would be what I would try and do first.
Thank you, Alderman. Paul?
Thank you.
Look, the property taxes should always be the tax increase of last resort, but I think there needs to be a permanent limit on property tax increases on homeowners, on renters, obviously through capping property taxes on rental properties, as well as businesses. Right now, the city operates under a property tax cap that's an automatic. It's an automatic levy increase, and I would get rid of that levy increase. The city council should be required, if they're going to increase property taxes, to vote on them, not have them automatic. But I think you need individual property tax caps to prevent people from being punished when property taxes are rising because of areas are developing. Gentrification is driving many businesses as well out of business, and many homeowners out of their homes. So at the end of the day, property tax should always be the tax increases of last resort. I will work not to raise property taxes, but I believe there should be individual property tax caps to protect both homeowners and businesses.
Thank you, Mr. Vallas.
Now we are almost running out of time.
Yeah, with closing remarks, Mr. Vallas.
Mr. Vallas, your closing remarks.
Yeah, I apologize for being late. I think I've made almost every community forum except, I believe, 3. Obviously, we're all working overtime, and there are sometimes some forums that we have to miss. So I do apologize for being late. I welcome the opportunity when in the runoff to come back and to perhaps be more punctual, and I really appreciate the opportunity to have my voice heard. And I want to say good luck to my colleagues and to, or I should say my competitors or my compatriots or whatever you want to call us, because we've been on the stage together for so many times. And you know, it's, Tuesday is election day. Let's all of us exercise our constitutional rights, and let's all participate. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Jamal Green.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. This is a pivotal election, and I just want to push folks to get out there and vote. Don't be fooled by the polls here. There's going to be a shocker February 28th, and we're ready to beat whomever we're in the runoff with. It's time for some fresh leadership who really is not tainted by political corruption, who has a innovative approach and can connect to everyday residents of the city of Chicago and bring forth a plan and a better future for all of our kids and the next generation of Chicagoans. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Green. And Alderman King, your final comments.
Yeah, thank you. I think we have a number of choices in the city of Chicago. I encourage people to really do their homework. What people say and have done in the past is a good predictor of how they will act in the future. And a lot of people are saying things and saying what you want to hear. I would do some research on what people have done. I've been working over the past 6.5, almost 7 years as a city council person, really collaborating, bringing people together to get things done, whether it's raising the $15 minimum wage, whether it's bringing what's being called one of the most equitable developments, as in Michael Reese, whether it's bringing light to disparity in contracts, whether it's making sure that there's strong minority participation in the billions of dollars of contracts in my ward and in the city. That's something that I've been working on over the last 6.5, 7 years, and I'd like to bring that to the 5th floor.
Thank you.
So you've got choices, but on February 28th, punch 2.
Thank you.
Sophia King for mayor. Thank you so much.
Again,
Thanks
we thank
Take
you
care.
for taking the time out and your patience for being a trooper. We really do. We'd like to thank our broadcast partners, Mr. Wayne Kim and the WIN Media Group, WIN TV, channel 24.5, and to the Rewind Sports 60. Now, a replay broadcast of this forum can be seen on demand on the Rewind Sports 60 channels, Roku, Fire TV, Apple TV, and the Android app, as well as our website and also on our Korean station, WIN TV, channel 24.5, and on the WIN TV YouTube channel and website as well.
Once again, I want to thank you to the candidates, activist Jamal Green and former CPS CEO Paul Vallas and Alderman Sophia King. I really appreciate it for joining our forum today. On behalf of Jerry Riles, I'm Julia Jung from WIN TV. Have a great day, and remember to get out and vote on Tuesday, February 28th. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much.
And thank you to our wonderful team. Thank you.